Okay, I am calling to order at 6:36, and we will begin with a roll call. So Trustee Corzo is here. Trustee Chen?
Here.
Trustee Proctor?
I'm here.
Trustee Watkins?
Here.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Here.
Okay, we are all present, and we'll be moving on to approval of special agenda.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All, okay, roll call vote. Trustee, yes. Hey. Trustee Chen?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Yes.
Okay, and we will be moving on to public statements related to agenda items. And Peter, do we have an idea of how many public statements we have?
President Corso, there's about 51 attendees currently, so we ask that anybody who would like to make public comment on non-agenda items, please use the functionality in Zoom to raise your hand, and then I will call upon you.
Okay, and just once we have an idea of how many public comments we have, we will determine whether we will give the full 3 minutes or whether we might need to cut down to 2 just in the sake of time. So I'll wait a few moments to get a better idea. Thank you.
President Corso, right now we have 2 attendees out of the 53 that would like to address the board.
Okay, great. So please limit statements to 3 minutes, and we can begin.
All right. First person will be Stephen. Stephen, I will click the button allowing you to talk. If your device, it may prompt you to allow recording. Please do so according so that way you can address the board. Clicking.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Excellent. So this is Steve Davis. This is different, so I apologize. This is not how any of us are used to doing this. I sent you all a letter suggesting that we really need to seriously and officially shut down. This is at no disrespect to the huge amount of work done by the teachers, staff, and administrators to try to get us where we are today. But we are seriously leaving many students behind. And I'm not sure what the magic number is, but maybe you need to think about that and think about figuring out where those students are and what we're going to be doing for them. And it's not just the students, it's the teachers. Teachers, in addition to trying to put together lessons remotely for which they perhaps are getting trained this week, also are dealing with the same things we all are dealing with in terms of the general environment, from the stress of the overall situation to worrying about their families and livelihoods, and then they're supposed to be worrying about our kids and, quote, educating them. And I don't think that's reasonable. There have been one of my teachers, every time I've seen her on video, and I appreciate every time she does that, looked totally exhausted and frazzled, probably like most of the rest of us. She sent me a text saying, It's been a rough day for me, trying to keep myself from feeling defeated. And then the thing that, you know, is there anything more I can do to support you guys? That's where we're all at. Are we really educating anyone, or are we just going through the motions? Because I really think, you know, this feels more like a bureaucratic exercise than an honest effort to educate. And what are the criteria for success? What are the criteria for figuring out we've done something wrong? And how many students are you comfortable leaving behind, because you are leaving some behind? And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. Next
President
public
Corso, the
comment.
next one
you.
is registered as an email address, but I'm looking at renabeth@gmail.com. I'm about to unmute you.
Hi, my name is Rena Cord, and I have 6th graders at Abbott. And my comment is pretty much the polar opposite of what Stephen Davis feels. I just wanted to say that I hope that as we move forward after the spring break and to the end of the school year, because I certainly expect that all the kids will be home through the entire semester, I hope that we can figure out ways for the kids to learn new material. I know in these past week, well, it's been a week, and what they're learning up to spring break is all review, which, you know, is all kind of crazy and sudden. But, you know, I do want my kids to be able to continue learning. I don't have that expectation that we can necessarily teach as they do in the classroom. And they're certainly, when we get to go back to school full time and hopefully stay there, certainly I would not be surprised if there are not gaps that would have to be filled in. But I can just speak for my family and my kids, and it's good for them to continue learning and to have a little bit of structure to their day. So thank you.
Thank you. We've had a couple more hands raised for participation. We have 4 others. Christy Wilson, I'm about to unmute you and allow you to speak, and then you can address the board.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, I'm Christy Wilson. I'm the parent of a 6th grader at Abbott, and I just wanted to take a chance to tell you all thank you. This is just an overwhelming thing that has happened, and I've been so impressed with the way San Mateo Foster City Schools have done their very best to make sure that our schools did not simply shut down, leave our kids at home, and say, your parents, you get to figure out the homeschool curriculum, which I feel like I have heard of other schools that did do that. And I know it's not easy. I know our teachers have been working probably even more hours than they would normally, but I have seen my son learn how to use new technology that he hasn't before. He's engaged, he's excited to get to meet with his teachers, and so I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for how hard you all are working. I know this is not an easy thing for anyone, and I just appreciate that you really do have our kids' best interest in heart at making sure that they are cared for and have, you know, stuff to do every day and are learning. And I have seen my son learn stuff already, and I think it's been really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy. All right, next participant, Randy. I'm about to unmute. Please address the board.
Hi, sorry about that. I don't have a non-agenda item. I do have an agenda item, which is 6.1.2. And then also just to echo my thanks to all of you.
Randy, thank you so much. But I just want to clarify, we are doing a special board meeting right now on the COVID-19, and then the regular board meeting will begin afterwards. So
Okay.
you can participate in either one, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't clear when this started.
And for those of you, although this is a one particular board meeting, we will be using the same Zoom webinar and meeting interface for both board meetings. So. Okay, Lisa Warren is the next, and afterwards will be Sarah Jimenez. So Lisa, I'm about to allow you to speak.
All right, unmuted and official now. Wow. First off, I just want to echo the sentiments that other people have mentioned, and thank you for being so forward thinking in this whole school closure. My sister's children, all 4 of them, are in Sacramento City District, and they're still trying to wrap their heads around what distance learning is going to look like. And I guess teachers and parents and everybody's getting frustrated with the district as they just kind of scratch their heads going, okay, we weren't expecting this. So to be able to sit from the standpoint of being a parent in a very prepared district and being able to say, oh yeah, I'm running home school, not as well as any of my children's teachers are. However, I do have curriculum that I can go over with them, and to see that the steps are being taken to, introduce new curriculum and how that's going to be looking like. And granted, no, it's not a perfect system, and there will definitely be bugs to be worked out, but at the same time, we are so much ahead of so many other districts. And I mean, like Sacramento is kind of like the same size, I would imagine, as, San Mateo. So, for us to be that far ahead of them, I think is awesome. And so I just want to take the time to thank everybody here for just that forethought. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, next is Sarah. Sarah, I'm unmuting you right now.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Awesome. I am a mom at Foster City Elementary School. I will echo what others said in saying thank you for everything that you've done so far. I don't think that anyone was prepared for a situation like this. And so obviously we're doing, all of us, the best that we can. And I can agree that the district has responded in a quick way and the best way possible given the circumstances. So thank you for that. I am a single mom, and obviously as a single mom, I have a job as well that usually will take me 12 hours a day normally. And in addition to that, I have to now obviously take time during the day to sit down with my son. While I think things are going well and better than anyone would have expected so far, obviously there are things that can be done better. In my case, my child has not had that face time with the teachers, and so just to put out there some actionables that I hope that can be different or improved after spring break would be to perhaps get some FaceTime with teachers. I'm not saying let's do the whole online learning that we have at colleges and universities, but sometimes just looking at the teacher to see what's going on, vent out how they're feeling in this time can really help the morale. And then in my particular situation, I would say that I have all the work and practicing material, not necessarily the chapters and the topics to prepare myself to teach my son. And obviously methods have today are so different than what they were when I went to school, that obviously that would help me in the process. And this is the first time that I participate from this type of meeting. I actually will continue to participate in the future to become a little bit more active and perhaps help more with those actionables. But I do want to say that the good that has happened overshadows anything that is an opportunity or things that can be improved. And I think we all can agree that in anything, there will always be a way to do something better. It's a matter of what can we do then with the time that we will have in the future left in the semester to make the best out of it. And we should definitely stay in school for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. President Corso, there are no other hands raised for public comment.
Okay. Thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and experiences, and we will be moving on to the district's presentation on the SMFCSD response to COVID-19 shelter in place. Sorry, that was my timer. Shelter in place and distance learning.
Thank you. I'll get started. I wanted to let you know that what people have mentioned about the quick turnaround of events is truly what happened. If we look back, on Friday, March 13th, we were told that students were going to be dismissed from school and that we needed to start distance learning planning. So our staff dropped all the previous plans for professional development that day and began creating distance learning materials. On Monday, a shelter in place was called, which meant that the staff needed to finish up and move out of the buildings, which further exacerbated the situation. So with so little time to prepare and not having a protocol to follow, the materials provided to our students were obviously different from class to class. And teachers utilized different teaching tools. Now, as we're settling into this new reality, we are learning what works better for different students and different grade levels. Most important, during this crisis, our #1 priority has been to remain in connection with our students. And I'd like to thank our staff for doing all they could to connect and to bring us to where we are at this point in time. Additionally, our families, as was mentioned just a moment ago, our families have had to manage job situations that may range from having a job and working with their children, or families who have no jobs right now and the stress of that and helping their children, and maybe even handling family members who are elderly or need additional support during this time. It's a lot. And many of our staff are parents of students in our district, and they see the challenges both from being a staff member and from being a parent themselves. We all see the challenges. So I want to thank our families for their patience and their connection. So my deepest thanks to our staff, our families, our students, our community for all the work that everyone is doing to make this situation the very best it can be. Now we're hearing that the Bay Area may be flattening the curve. So our shelter in place is working. But even with that news, we have been told that we cannot return to school until after May 1st. We will take our spring break from April 6th to the 17th, and then staff will prepare another round of distance learning tasks to take us through May 1st. This is being called Phase 2, and that's the official name of it, Phase 2. We will employ what we've learned from Phase 1 to improve our lesson delivery during Phase 2. Now, what may help this situation is that the county shelter in place, right now, it's set to end on April 7th. If that date remains the same, we would be able to enter our buildings to prepare the lessons, which would be enormously helpful. So we'll see if that's true. If not, we will figure it out. Tonight, I have asked several staff members to join us to provide information related to how we're managing the COVID-19 situation. Sue Weiser is here to talk to us about conversations with our union leadership, They have been tremendously collaborative with this situation, and she'd like to share what's going on there. Dr. Sarah Drinkwater will then join her in describing some childcare options that we're bringing in for medical personnel. David Chambliss, who's our Assistant Sup of Ed Services, will follow with information on distance learning, and he's going to share some of the equity challenges that we've had and how we're planning ahead for our phase 2. Dr. Sarah Drinkwater will then return to talk a little bit about the special ed processes in place. And Andrew Solis, Director of Child Nutrition, will provide some information on meal programs. And Diane Willoughby will finish us off with district communications and some resources that she's been gathering. So I'll turn it over to Sue Weiser to share the conversations with union leadership.
Good evening. I want to just give you a little bit of an update on what we've been doing with our staffs and our union. It's truly been a collaboration with SMETA and CSEA. I'm amazed at just what we've been able to do in such a short period of time. The district truly appreciates the efforts of teachers and certificated support staff to continue educating students during this time. We're pleased to inform you that we did reach an initial agreement with an MOU concerning the district's response to COVID-19. And some of the highlights include the fact that we had 3 preparation days for teachers from March 16 through 18. But they were just heroic in their efforts, and they finished their planning much sooner, and we were able to start working remotely by Thursday of the week. We launched distance learning on Thursday, March 19th, and we've continued to teach remotely, and we'll do so through spring break. The district and SMETA leadership have continued to meet as we know that things are changing rapidly, and as teachers and certificated support staff dig into the distance learning, we're having to resolve lots of different issues and concerns, and we've been able to do that very collaboratively. So we're really grateful. So on behalf of the district team, I really want to thank SMETA for their collaboration and their efforts to provide distance learning, connecting with students and families during these unprecedented times. We know that teachers and support staff are facing many challenges, and we really appreciate how they have risen to those challenges and taken care of our students and families. So we are, like I said, we're continuing our talks, and now we are discussing what happens with distance learning after the spring break through May 1st. The district also really appreciates the efforts of our classified staff and CSEA. They've been able to support the distance learning, provide meals, make sure that we have safe and clean facilities during this difficult time. So we're also pleased to inform you that we had reached agreement with CSEA as well. And some of the highlights include that most classified employees are working from home, working remotely. There are some that have been designated as essential employees, and these include, for example, maintenance operations, food services, technology, business, and now also will include some of our paraeducators. But the essential employees are working from home, they're on call, and if they do report to a district worksite to work, we did agree to pay time and a half because they are taking a risk of increased exposure as they perform their duties. And again, a huge thank you to both SMETA and CACA for the collaboration and support. There are many districts that have not reached agreement, as some of the speakers have talked about, but we've been really, really fortunate to be able to work with our union leadership so that the district can continue to move forward for our students. The last thing I'd like to talk about is childcare. Per the order of the county health officer, childcare may be provided to essential workers, including healthcare workers and first responders. The city of San Mateo did reach out to us to see if the district was in a position to be able to provide childcare. We met with CSEA and discussed this possibility, and they were very much in support of this. So we are currently in the process of moving forward to see if we can provide childcare services to our first responders and healthcare workers. Dr. Roses, Sarah Drinkwater, and I have participated in meetings with representatives from various cities throughout the county to work together on the possibility of providing this service. And at this time, Sarah Drinkwater will provide you with an update on the steps that have been taken thus far. Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Corzo and other trustees. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And as Sue Weiser just shared with you, we have the opportunity to collaborate with the City of San Mateo and other agencies around our community to perhaps provide childcare to essential workers. And what we're considering and looking at is 4 sites that would correspond with the same 4 sites that offer the meal service. So we would be located there. Looking at a classroom of about 8 to 12 students with 2 staff. And we know that medical workers or hospital workers' schedules are typically a 12-hour shift. And so we would need to be open 12 hours, whether it be 6:30 to 6:30 or 7 to 7. We need to find out a little bit more about the needs. There is a hospital consortium that has surveyed the medical facilities, hospitals around our area, and it is known how many parents or families are looking for childcare, and it ranges in our community up to about 100, whether those families live in our area or maybe driving from Morgan Hill or San Jose. And so we are really wanting to support this effort in our community. One thing that the groups and agencies that are discussing pulling this together is a site would have a stable group of children and a stable group of teachers. So the students or children wouldn't be different ones every single day, but be stable to limit the exposure to everyone as much as possible. And then cleaning would need to happen, you know, on a daily basis. And we're discussing how registration happens, enrollment, and trying to make it as easy as possible for these essential workers. And so we are moving along with that, and it actually is very exciting to be able to meet that need in our community. Thank you.
Ask a question.
Sure.
In regards to every, can you guys hear me? I have an echo. Okay.
I was just thinking that if you could just note your question, and then we wait until everyone's done presenting to ask questions.
Okay. No problem.
So then I would ask at this time if David Chambliss could join us, and David will give us an update on the distance learning process and the equity challenges that we need to address as we come back for phase 2.
I have promoted him to a panelist, and he will be rejoining in just one moment. David, you are on mute.
Yes,
there you go.
I realize that. Let me try that again. So good evening, David Chambliss, Assistant Superintendent for Ed Services. As Joan outlined, I'm going to just take a couple minutes to talk to you this evening about how we've proceeded with our distance learning plan. As Joan mentioned, we began the distance learning planning work back in the week of March 9th. As she noted, we had to make a lot of fast-moving adjustments to the possibility of closing schools, and then, of course, more specific stay-at-home order. So we repurposed the March 13th Teacher PD Day and scheduled the 3 days of planning at the beginning of the week of March 16th. with the plan to launch on the 17th. In that time, the focus then that I really want to emphasize, and for these 12 days of distance learning, we have focused on two things, and that is teachers and staff connecting to students and families. We want to acknowledge the deep social emotional challenges of this shift, and we felt like it was very important just to think about how we could, as teachers and staff at our schools, be in relationship with our students and families. So the emphasis was on contact and communication. And then, as was mentioned, that the 12 days of distance learning that would take us up to this coming spring break would focus on reinforcing and enriching prior learning. As you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges that we faced immediately was this question of how all students would have access to distance learning. We recognized that there were a lot of barriers to all of our students and families managing distance learning via digital devices. And so the planning for that week and the launch were really focused on the combination of delivering digital and hard copy learning materials to students and families, to make sure that we did have full access for all students to the distance learning. At the same time, we knew that if we had to go longer, and as Joan described it, we are now going into a phase 2 where there would be greater emphasis on teachers facilitating new learning with students, that the need for digital access was just going to be that much greater. So one of the things we did was we launched a family survey, and we needed to very quickly find out, get the data on our families, who had devices in their home, who had access to Wi-Fi, who had strong enough Wi-Fi to be able to stream videos if necessary. So we launched the survey in 2 rounds. We did it via email, text, and robocalls, directing people to please go onto the website and complete the survey. So that elicited a profound level of return. We have over 8,000 responses to that survey. And again, these are by family. So if you imagine the number of families that have more than one student, we got very far, very fast in a picture of the technology needs of our students and families. We're in the phase now where we know we still have many families that we have not gotten responses from. And so we're now in the phase of asking staff at our sites to, in whatever way they can, and there's a lot of resources our schools are directing toward this, that they're connecting with our families and gathering this information about those families' technology needs. And at the same time, in that week of March 9th, Peter and our tech services folks really intensified the planning about, once we did know how many students would need devices under Wi-Fi, how would we get those to them? And that planning continues. So as was described, we are now moving toward a phase 2, and we recognized last week that this was likely, and we would need to begin to prepare our staff for the possibility of this more intensified digital distance learning. And so we began a plan to provide a professional learning to all of our site and teacher leaders this past Monday, March 23rd. And so Ed Services folks pulled together that, and actually on this past Monday afternoon, I'm proud to say we actually delivered a professional learning in a distance learning format, and we had over 90 leaders who participated and learned more about how we use our Google tools, which are Google Meet and Google Classroom. And the idea is, we know in these 2 weeks, we want to stay focused on connecting. We want to stay focused on providing learning that enriches and deepens learning that's already happened. And we just want people to begin trying these tools. We're really trying to bring down kind of the anxiety around this. Our teachers are perfectionists and want to deliver high quality learning to our students, and these are new platforms. And so we're really just emphasizing to our site leaders, please try it with your staff, ask your teachers to try them with each other, possibly work on them. We have different sites who have different sort of expertise at theirs. In some cases, they're already doing Google Classroom with students. In some cases, they're very much in a learning phase. So we're trying to bring all of our folks along and ready them for more intensified distance learning. I would add that as we're looking at this question of, this phase 2 distance learning, we have to recognize that, we want to solve the digital access issues. We want to make sure our families, our staff and teachers are ready. But we're not going to be able to reach everybody through strictly digital means. So we're already thinking about, what do we do with those families that, even if given a device, they may struggle to use it effectively. And so we're really problem solving these questions of how we ensure that the equity challenges that we face do not inhibit student access to learning. And we're beginning to build out what I guess would be best described as a case management approach, where if we identify families that we bring resources to them, and we problem solve their particular circumstances and try to figure out the best solution possible. I would add that, one of the challenges that we face in this kind of shift is supporting our families of English learners and families where English is not the first language spoken in the home. So one of the things we've done is we've reorganized our translation services to support from a distance, and we've also identified an on-demand translation resource that we hope to roll out next week, which ideally in the moment can support our teachers to work with our families for whom English is not their first language. Obviously, we also need to think very carefully about how we provide supports to our students with disabilities. And so actually at this time, I'd actually like to invite Sarah Drinkwater to come back on and to share with you a little bit about the work that we've been doing around distance learning in support of our students with disabilities.
Good evening again. Thank you so much. So as David mentioned, I wanted to share a bit about special education services, and first wanted to mention about the prior written notice that was sent to families early last week. And a prior written notice is a special education legal document that explains for families changes that are going to happen in a program. Given the exceptional circumstances that we are in related to school closures and the shelter in place, we knew that this document needed to be developed for all families whose children have IEPs. So it was a rather lengthy document, but described the exceptional circumstances and then also laid out how services may be provided for their children. And similar to David, the special education staff, paraeducators, our related service staff, the consultants or other outside agencies are all a part of providing services for students with special needs, and in a variety of ways. In addition, just to finish on the prior written notice, it also provided information about pausing timelines. Assessment timelines are paused because many assessment sections have to be conducted in a one-to-one situation, and those would need to be paused because there would be not a way for the assessor and the child to get together. However, some parts of assessments could continue if there was a survey or a rating scale or something like that that the family was completing, or a medical practitioner was completing on behalf of a student. The other timeline that was paused was requests for records. Legally, we are to respond to requests for special education records in 5 days. but we're not able to do that with no staff in buildings to retrieve those documents and make them available to the parent or whoever is requesting them. So given that we've just learned that we are not returning to buildings, to our school buildings, we will need to amend and update the prior written notice because it was initially drafted and sent out related to the timeline ending on April 3rd. So we are actually working on that right now so that we will have that in place for families. To get back to services provided, as I mentioned, all of the special education staff, including paraeducators, are involved in providing services and contacting families. There have been group instruction, individualized therapies provided, teletherapy provided by speech language pathologists. The adaptive PE staff has also put together activities and videos related to movement and physical education, and actually collaborated with the PE teachers, the general ed PE teachers, in putting together materials during those planning days that David previously mentioned. The services and consultations and communications with children and families are all being logged so that we are tracking what is being provided to our special education students. I'll just add to end, counseling is a part of student services, and counselors are very much a part of what is being offered and provided for families. We know they provide one-to-one therapy for students as well as sometimes group. So we had to move quickly in order to make sure our Google platform was HIPAA compliant, because mental health therapies need to follow the medical HIPAA compliance for confidentiality. And Peter Kazanis and I worked together in working with Google in order to make our platform HIPAA compliant. So those types of therapies can occur with students and meet that confidentiality requirement. So I wanted to be sure and share that with you. And also many resources have been offered to families, whether it be social emotional resources or family resources they might need. So I am glad to share those with you, and it's complementary to the work that teachers and teacher leaders are doing, as David described earlier. Thank you.
And now I'd like Andrew Solis to give a little information about the meals program. And after Andrew, we'll finish with Diane, and then it'll be your opportunity for comments and questions. Andrew.
Hold on one second, Joan. I am working on promoting him to a panelist. There we are.
See myself, but I see you all. All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody to allow me to speak this evening regarding our meal service. Under USDA, United States Department of Agricultural Regulations, we are operating under the Summer Seamless program, and they have provided some waivers for us to provide meals in these different times. So first, I'd like to share my gratitude and thanks to the Child Nutrition Services team that have continued to serve our students.
Andrew, I think you got disconnected for a moment, sir.
Yeah. Am I back now?
You are back now. Go ahead.
All right. So I'd like to thank again the Child Nutrition Services team that have continued to serve our students and community with nutritious meals in keeping with our mission to serving education. The team has been serving over 600 meals a day at 4 school sites, Laurel, Lead, Foster City, and College Park since March 16th. And with the continued distance learning in place through May 1st, Child Nutrition will continue to serve meals through May 1st, including during spring break. And meals are available for the community members 18 years and younger, and those meals are being offered and provided for free to all of those students at those 4 school sites from 11:30 to 12:30. So if you'll please share with those that you know that Child Nutrition is here to continue to provide nutritious meals to the students and those under 18 years and younger. And just really want to thank everyone for the support. And again, thankful to the outstanding Child Nutrition Services team members for their hard work and dedication to continuing to serve education.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And now Diane.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on the work of communications during the COVID-19 pandemic. I know I've been responsible for filling everyone's inbox and phones with messages. So in my next few minutes with you, I'd like to review communications structure, our communications to our stakeholders, the active channels we have in operation, our networks, and some work that we've been doing on community resources. So communications can be many things, but out of necessity over the recent month, the role of communication has been to keep people informed of the rapidly changing circumstances affecting the teaching and learning in our district. It's been about the immediate now, not reporting on stories of past happenings, or even looking very far in the future. We've only been going several weeks ahead. So to me, communications flows best when it flows from actions and decisions. And over the past several weeks, I believe our communication has flowed reasonably well because decisive action has been taken by our entire team. While the situation has rapidly changed, we've had a structure in place for weeks now that has helped us to share information. So our communication structure looks like this. Our superintendent connects regularly with county and other superintendents. Our district cabinet meets every morning at 9 o'clock. Our daily leadership team happens every day with upwards of 50 to 60 people on the call, and that's every morning. And at the same time, we have two-way communication because we're getting constant feedback that helps us to anticipate questions that then again enter into the cycle of problem solving and communication. So as much as we can, we have been striving for consistent communication to every different party. When we are moving forward dealing with a decision, we're looking at the communication to staff and families on almost a simultaneous basis. And to the extent that it's consistent across all of our communities, we're using consistent communication. Our communications fall into several areas. It falls into breaking news, like we had yesterday, and that response has to be immediate, and the first priority is speed. Secondly, we share information on decisions and process. So what decisions have been made over the next day or two past that really need to get out beyond the district, that need to get in the hands of the families, that then our site leaders can use to add the specifics of their site. So anything that's district level, we've really tried to communicate clearly and widely so that then the site leaders can go into more depth. Third, we are a community, and I speak, I hope, for Cabinet in our feeling and our relationship and how we have been trying to feel connected to one another, and that's hard. So we've been trying to expand that to our leadership team, to the rest of our staff, the district office, and then to our families, to empathize and to stay connected. As both Joan and David talked about, we are a community, and without acknowledging these connections, the need for these connections, we can be very siloed and isolated in our own homes. We're trying to work against that. At the same time, our phones are still connected and we are still responding to individual family calls, and we are getting a pretty positive response, I would say. Our sites are locked, our playgrounds are wrapped with caution tape, but our signs are posted letting people know that we care about them. Our active communications include email, of course, and school messenger, which has been broadly used, email, voice calls, text. Our district office website has been regularly updated and it pushes out to school websites. We're using Facebook almost daily, and we're moving to print in cases of the lunch extension. We want that word out, and we're moving to print about the community resources I'll talk about in a moment. In addition, we have extensive communications networks. I'm in constant communication with the County Office of Education's communications team. I'm part of a communications network that has been built through the County Office of Education. I'm in contact with the PIOs of our cities of Foster City and San Mateo, and with other county districts. And so that's a summary of the communications work that we've been doing. I do want to say, in summary, that no matter how much we've tried to be proactive and responsive, it has felt like it's been just in time. And given our changing environment, we'll continue to do our best to be as proactive as possible. The last thing I wanted to share with you is that as a collaborative effort between communications, student services, and education services, we've built a 4-page document of communication resources that includes food assistance, legal aid, immigrant resources, and many other topics that will be posted tomorrow in English and Spanish on all of our communication channels. It not only includes free meals at our sites, but free meals beyond in the community. And it will also be shared in print at our food distribution sites. So with that, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Diane. At this point, this is the presentation that we wanted to make with some information to you.
If we can just give Joan just one moment. I know that she was having some connection difficulties. I believe we have her back. Joan, can you hear us?
Sorry about that. I do hear you. Do you see me? Do you see me? Okay. So I was just saying that that's our presentation, and it's back to you for questions.
Okay, so we also as panelists have the ability to raise our hand. So I'm gonna ask that the trustees use that function so that we can ask our questions. Any questions?
Okay. Trustee Chin has raised his hand.
So I just wanted to go back to this survey. I know that we had 8,000 responses for the technology survey. Do we have any preliminary data about the technology needs of our district? I am concerned about the digital divide that we have and some of our families who don't have access to the distant learning materials that we have. So I'm just wondering if you can share some preliminary data with us, or is it really not ready to be shared?
It actually is not quite ready. I'd want to come back to you with accurate information. And we, as I mentioned, we have sites are also reaching out and trying to confirm where we haven't gotten replies yet. Just to be clear about what this survey was asking, we have to think about first families that have no computers. And then we also asked if families have just one device, one computer, that especially if the adults need it or if other students need it, we've got some competition for time. So there's kind of layers of the data that we want to make sure we understand accurately before, announcing that we need, to distribute 4,000 Chromebooks, for example. We want to make sure we're accurate.
And I'm going to interrupt really briefly because Rebecca and, Trustee Hitchcock and Proctor, in terms of being able to raise your hand, you can click on participants, which will then open a panel on the right side, and at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see raise hand.
As such,
so you're gonna,
Trustee Watkins did raise her hand.
Quick question, Noelia, are we doing questions or we're doing questions and comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. I got like interference in that.
And comments now, or just questions?
I heard bits and pieces.
President Corso, Trustee Watkins is asking if you would like to
we should follow
have. I'm also wondering, President Corso, if it might be better to have you dial in via phone for purposes of audio. I think that might be some issues that I might be experiencing.
Okay.
So we're going to take just, if you don't mind, take a brief pause, give you an opportunity to join in. It should be in the email invitation that was sent to you as far as the specific dialing in and pins associated to associate with your participation as part of this panel. President Corzo, I see that you have joined via phone. You are still muted via the phone. I'm about to.
Can you hear me now?
I see. We can.
Okay,
And
is
it
that
comes
much
through a
better?
lot clearer. It is.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So process, I think I understood Shara's question. I think what we can do is follow our normal process for our meetings. And so we'll ask clarifying questions, some time for additional public comment, and then, I'm sorry, clarifying questions, responses from staff, and we'll go from there.
Okay, then I'll hold for now.
Okay, there are two on the board, President Corzo, Trustee Proctor, and Trustee Hitchcock that have their hands raised.
Can you hear me? Okay, I just had a question in terms, I understand that this, these, I don't know, 12 days or so was kind of relearning things that have already been taught. I was just curious, once we come back from spring break and it's kind of in this new learning phase, what are the goals and expectations from students in terms of how they will be assessed on the work that they turn in, or when they come back to school, are they being graded on what they learned, or how will it work in terms of expectations from the students?
I'd like to respond to that because that's something that all of the superintendents are talking about throughout the county, because grading at this time is a very difficult situation. So we're still working on what that's going to look like, and we want to talk with SMETA leadership also.
Okay.
Trustee Hitchcock?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. So regarding the distance learning, I know we were shared about ELLs and SPED. Is it possible to provide those updates, what you're working on and where you hope to go, and communicate that some way to those families so they know what to expect? And then regarding the one-on-ones that we have to pause, what other districts are doing this regarding this matter, and are we getting directives from the state in order how to regarding this topic?
So I'll start and then Sarah can follow me. But again, the SELPA, which is our local, is definitely involved in all of the county programs. So we're following that lead and working with other districts in what they're doing. And I'll let Sarah take it if there's other agencies you're working with.
So related to contact with families, the case manager and the other providers of service are responsible for connecting with the parents and student and letting them know what it is they can do and how it's going to happen. There have been packets made that were delivered to families prior to the closure of the school district, I'll call it that. And so some families do have packets that they're working through. Some are happening through the phone consultation, and some are happening online. All of the students who attend non-public schools are being served by those schools and the staff from those schools with communication directly with the parent about how that's going to happen. Related to one-to-one services that are provided, given with the shelter in place and the concern about exposure, there are no staff either from the agency or districts that are going to families' homes at this point in time.
Thank you. And then regarding, oh, there's so many, hold on, sorry. With regards to the 4 schools that are gonna open for childcare, I wanna make sure the staff, like, they don't feel pressured to work, and those that choose to, do they have what they need to feel safe and comfortable working, like are we supplying masks or gloves or hand sanitizer?
That's a really good question. Those are very good questions. And as Sue mentioned, the staff from the annex are being contacted, and it's totally on a voluntary basis. We're learning through the meetings that we're having, the types of procedures that are being put in place for protection. Two of them I mentioned, that it be stable child group and then a stable staff group, daily cleaning. And in addition, we learned that children's temperatures are taken every day. So we'll need to look into, ways to take temperature with like a sleeve that you can throw away so that it's protected, protects children and the person. And so we're learning about some of those things right now through those collaborative meetings that are occurring, so that we have those in place prior to services starting.
Thank you.
President Corzo.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions, and let me just say that I usually write my questions on my computer, but I'm looking at everyone, so I'm doing it on my phone. So I'm trying to adapt here to this new technology we're using. And I'll start by kind of like by category. So in terms of special education, I was wondering how it looks, how our teachers are supporting our students at like their different levels of need. And what I mean by that is like very like concretely, for example, I understand that like some students were sent home with like a backpack that had like, some of their works, things that support them in terms of like, visuals that they use that help them stick to their routine. And I'm just wondering what that looks like for our students with special needs that are mild to moderate and then moderate to severe. I'm just wondering if there's like consistency with that.
Given the needs of, as you know, that students are so different, it's hard to answer about consistency because things are different. But for students who have more mild to or mild needs and whose services may be provided through the resource room teacher and the general ed teacher, there's collaboration occurring related to accommodations to access the general education curriculum. And that might be modified work, because those students would be interacting with the general ed teacher and working on the materials that the general ed teacher is providing with support from either a paraeducator or the resource room teacher. But in addition, those students also get services through the resource room teacher. And so in addition, they would have time with the IEP providers that they see outside of the general education classroom. So for students who are more moderate to severely involved, it is more complicated to provide services. The speech language pathologist and many of the paraeducators were involved in quickly putting together, as you said, visual schedules, token systems that could be provided for the families to use at home. And then there are those behavior therapists that are interacting regularly with families. It is not easy for families who are at home with children with more severe needs. We also have the school nurse team checking in twice a week with those students with severe medical needs to make sure that their families are doing okay. Are there any other supports that they might need? And so the school nurse team, they have a rotation, a schedule, and they are calling and talking with those parents twice a week, actually, to make sure, because there's something that, maybe something came up that they would need even outside resources or getting in touch with their doctors, etc. So I hope that was helpful for you.
Yes, thank you. Everyone can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. Now this is for Andrew, Nutrition Services. I was wondering if you could speak to, so I understand that there's about 600 students being served through this currently, and I'm wondering what it looks like when school is actually in session, just to get an idea of whether, I imagine it's less, right? Less students are using it, but yeah, I'm just curious to know that. And my second question was, what did the outreach look like for the nutrition services other than like the online and yeah, I guess like the communication plan for the free meals?
So what we're serving today with the 600, we are serving less because typically between breakfast, lunch, and snack, we're closer to 6,000 meals a day. So it is less. But we do have the great opportunity to at least continue to provide meals for those that want them and need them. As far as communication that has been put out with Diane's communications that we had, I had to talk with the principal today and asking what further communication we can have for a particular school site to make sure that we are reaching everybody. So as part of their weekly communication also, they are putting it out to them, and then it is just kind of word of mouth right now, as there's no other means of how we can go door to door or so to pass that out.
Can I also add something, please?
Sure.
So
yes.
I've actually been talking to a lot of people because my big concern is that our regular channels aren't going to touch the people who really need this. And so I've come up with some creative solutions that I frankly haven't even had a chance to talk to Andrew about, which is that we're going to post it on the Foster City marquee. I'm going to share it with the local newspapers who have been really great about carrying our plans. I'm going to specifically give it to the police department. I've also already sent it out to all of our staff tonight. They got both an English flyer and a Spanish flyer. And I've also already had a few asking about how they could get their hands on print copies. So we're printing 1,000 copies tomorrow, 1,200 copies. 250 will go to each of the serving meals, each of the sites serving meals. I'll have 200 to hand out to those who need it and want it. And obviously we can print more as needed. We just kind of want to see how that goes. But the idea is really to get it in their hands. And we're having teachers as well as our counseling team tell us that some of the people they serve don't have this information. So we really did a full press today, and you'll see a lot more of that in the next day and beginning of next week.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to hear that. Great, thank you. So this question is these questions are for David regarding our English learners. I'm wondering if our English learners are, if they're getting a little bit more support from teachers in terms of like frequency of contacts, or what that looks like. And I'll kind of try to throw out all my questions. And I imagine for English learners, like it looks a little different for the ones that are able to read, period, and then the ones that are not able to read yet. I'm wondering if we could leverage like DLAC or existing phone trees to kind of maybe,
I know that there are folks that go into schools and read to students, and can we still leverage some of those volunteers, or can we maybe ask our community, like, can you tutor a child via like video or phone, or sorry, those are my questions for now.
Yeah, thank you. Those are great questions. So I can't say with certainty about the additional contacts. There's a couple things going on. One, we are asking teachers and staff to document the communications that they're having, and so at some point we could ask principals to take a look at those and see that question of the frequency of contact with ELs. We do have folks, in addition to teachers, who are also reaching out. Sarah mentioned counselors. We have teachers on special assignment who hold, in some cases, they hold ELD groups of ELD students who are also making contact. So without actually seeing the actual logs of communication, my guess is that yes, that those students are getting additional touches. We've had some anecdotal data that actually we've had some parents saying, actually kind of slow down, we're actually getting too much contact in some cases. So that's a welcome problem to have. And then I appreciate your suggestions about thinking of additional community resources that we could bring to bear. This is the piece that as we kind of make this shift to the new learning and the supports that we would like to provide as we think about, and I kind of coined the, use the phrase case management, basically just to say we want to reach out to those families and talk about whatever barriers they're encountering, and then figuring out what services. And I think your suggestions are excellent for bringing those kinds of resources online once we're clear what could be most supportive.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you. I'm trying to remember to stick just to questions right now. Okay, that's it. Those are my questions. I believe Trustee Hitchcock also raised her hand again, so please go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to know, Diane, in addition to the Foster City marquee, is it possible or something maybe we can put on each of our school boards? I don't know if all schools have the electronic marquees, but is that a possibility of looking into that? And then also in regards to the communication channels for our community, not just our school community, how do the general public know how to get the info or additional info that we want to provide? Does that make sense? No?
With respect to your first question, we are going to post them at the sites. We just put, I think it was yesterday maybe, the days are blurring a bit. I think we just put up signs yesterday about school being closed and encouraging our community to stay indoors. So, and the marquees our marquees don't have a lot of space to be able to put the free meal flyer up, but we are gonna post them there. So they'll be,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm sorry, if you could clarify your second question, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that there are other resources, not just for our school community, but the general public. And so I wanted to know how's the general public getting all of this additional resource information? How are they finding out about it?
Well, initially I'm focusing on our community members. So it's a very, very long document. It's 4 pages of links, and yeah, it's
okay.
So I will share that with all of my channels. But what's happening, and I'm on a listserv, and I get about 50 messages from all California public relations officers, and so well, the benefit is that I get to see what everyone is doing and what everyone's putting out. And I'm collecting relevant information, relevant services, but everyone's kind of doing the same thing. So people are being bombarded. So admittedly, I am going to focus on our community first and try to get this, just thinking about how hard it is to get that flyer about lunches in their hand. I think this could be overwhelming to someone if they don't have someone who's really a mentor or a counselor or someone in a relationship with them handing them this document. So we're definitely going to share it in English and Spanish at our meal sites, but we kind of want to see how that goes because this is a brand new tool. And I'm really stepping beyond, I think, district business by offering this really widely. But we definitely want our families to take advantage of the services that are being offered.
Thank you. And then I have a question for David. I know we already touched on this as well, but and also with Monday's training, will there be more than just one day of training? I just want to make sure that all the staff feel supported and comfortable with the distance learning tools.
Yes. So, I mean, we're in the process of planning them now, but we're thinking of sort of tiers of professional learning where some are site-based and hosted. Some are, we'll just, in some cases, like around the Google tools, there's a lot of videos that could be self-directed by a teacher. So push those out, as well as supporting with other centrally hosted professional learning.
Thank you. And then also too, again, we touched on this, so my apologies, but are there clear directives for the schools and teachers and what tools they use, or guidelines for Zooming every day or individually or something?
No, I think I'm going to step in because I think that's a lot of what we want to work with our leadership on.
Okay.
Some of the conversations Sue's having, we're having as we start to figure out phase 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Okay.
President
So
Corzo?
I
just wanted
yes.
to bring to your attention, there is one attendee that does have their hand up. I know that the opportunity for public comment has passed. I just wanted to double check to make sure that that was still the case and you did not want to hear the public comment.
Yeah, actually I do think that we should take that public comment. So I'll open public comment and open the space for Yenny, and then if anyone else wants to raise their hand from the public before I close public comments, and then we start our discussion.
Okay, so again, to all those participating and listening in as attendees, if you'd like to participate in public comment, please raise your hand and I will call on you one at a time. Unmute your microphone. Depending on your device, you may be prompted for permissions to use your microphone, so just be aware of that. Yenny Santos, I'm about to unmute you. Okay, Yenny.
Hello.
Hello, Yenny.
Hello,
Yenny. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna go straight to my question. So, because this is the beginning of the spring, there is a bunch of allergies and also can be a regular flu season. And due to the lack of tests for the current corona virus, so what will be the minimum health requirements to get back to school in May 1st? Did you hear me?
The thing is that public comment is usually a comment and not a back and forth with the board. I think that what we would want everyone to know is that the public health department guides whether or not we're coming back to school and lets us know what the requirements are. So just so everyone in the public knows, this is more just a time for comment. And you can always email me if you have questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Yenny. Okay, and now we have Lisa Warren. Lisa, I'm about to unmute you. You might be prompted for permissions.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. So I'm going to speak as a registered nurse who is looking at wondering how to be a first-line responder, as well as parenting my 3 children who would normally be at school for those 6.5 hours a day while I would sleep because I do work night shift. I really want to applaud the idea of creating some sort of childcare option, because that is one of the things that is really foremost and forefront in my brain is that, you know, who do I choose? You know, where do I go? Do I educate my children, you know, at home using the wonderful resources we've been given, or do I go to work? And obviously, given the situation and where we are right now, I mean, it's very important for me to go to work. So to know that you are considering that option of having my kids be able to be taken care of as I try to get some sleep and get ready for the next shift means a lot. And so I really hope that that gets fleshed out. Another thing to keep in mind is because nurses and physicians, we all mostly work 12-hour shifts. That means we're only on 3 days a week. So it's not like your standard 8 hours, 5 days a week sort of a thing. And then we also work every other weekend. So that would be something to consider when you're trying to figure out scheduling and how many kids and families you would have in that core set of families within that class or whatever. So it's just food for thought. And again, from a healthcare professional standpoint, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I see that we do not have any other public comments, and so I'll be closing our public comments again and opening up for discussion. And I will just share briefly and then let other folks share, and then I'll share again. I do just want to let the public know that our board is getting very frequent updates, and not just updates, but having the space and the opportunity to collaborate with our county and pretty much all elected officials in our county, because our governor did make some changes to the Brown Act for this specific issue. So what that means is that we are all able to participate and get information from these now, I think 3 times a week calls with our county to really get frequent updates, because we do have our responsibility to our students and our families and our teachers and our staff, but also to the greater community. And so there is a lot of collaboration happening. And I'll just share that specifically for the decision to close school, or not close schools, but to continue distance learning until May 1st. That was a decision that was made as a region for all of our 6 surrounding counties. And that, from my understanding, is how decisions will continue to be made at a county and a regional level. And so that is not a decision that this board makes by itself. And just another point, and then I'll open the floor for other board members. In terms of the report cards and the grades, and we also have 5th graders and 8th graders, and they're supposed to graduate, and those are very real questions and concerns. And I just want to speak to the fact that this is hard on our kids. It's hard on our family. It's hard on everyone. But I do want to thank all of our staff for all of their hard work. But I did want to say that in terms of the report cards and the graduation, that actually will be a decision that's made district by district, because each district has, its own situation with staff, with the community, with our kids. And so that is something that will be a decision that this board will make in the future. And so I will stop there and open up the space for other board members.
Okay, Trustee Watkins.
Hey, I felt like I had a mix of comments and questions, so I decided I would just wait until the time to do both. I wanted to actually start, there are 2 quotes I wanted to read, just, being immersed in articles over the past weeks that I feel like resonate with just the challenge that we have facing us. So one says, so on one hand, our current national health emergency shows the extraordinary value of public schools. They are essential to families and communities' lives, perhaps more than ever before. And yet, on the other hand, the coronavirus outbreak illuminates just how much we ask of our public education system. And I feel like that's so true when you think about, when we hear the presentation of everything that we're doing as a district, that our district is doing, that our staff, that our teachers, that our district leadership, our site leadership, everyone in our district is doing. It really is, it's necessary, and it's a lot that everyone's being asked to do. And so I'm really grateful and thankful to everyone for stepping up and jumping in. And I know working around the clock to ensure that we're providing our students and families with as much support as we can, which kind of brings me to the second quote, which says, and if anyone's interested in where these came from, I'm happy to send them. A school district alone cannot formulate the entire response for our children. Other governing bodies and social groups need to ensure that parents have adequate wage replacement to stay home with their children, protection from eviction should they lose wages. State governments must modify rules to allow schools to do the best they can, et cetera. So essentially the point is just, our society does not have the social structures and systems to provide the necessary support for our students and families, which kind of brings me back to that first quote, which is, and so our schools are that social safety net for our kids and families and are asked to do a lot. So just kind of framing my comments in that light, because it's a heavy weight, it's a massive task that schools are generally required to do or take on, because our schools are and our district office are filled with people that care so immensely for the kids and families with whom we're working, right? And so it's something that people willingly take on, and it's a lot. And now we're immersed in this unprecedented situation that's challenging and unknown, and it adds a whole other layer of complexity. And so, I just think it's important for us to kind of stay grounded in some of that. And just wanted to, express my gratitude to everyone who's been involved in this, from folks that are interfacing with our students and families, to staff that are still, are going to need to still at sometimes put themselves in positions that maybe aren't, don't get to stay home, that they have to interface in a variety of different ways with the community, that are doing it because they want to. But, I'm just immensely grateful for all of that. And, the experience that I have heard from the majority of families has been enormously positive. And I know we had some public comment. You know, I work with schools and districts all over, and I will tell you that like this is not the experience that many students and families. There is of course work to be done, and I have some comments and thoughts. But we are light years ahead in terms of what a lot of students and families are experiencing. And so I'm just really grateful. So thank you. You know, as it was brought up, and as we know, we've talked a lot about equity on our board. It is also true that there are massive equity issues, right? Some that fall under the parameter of what we do as a school district or what should be or is our responsibility. Some that fall outside of that, which are also things that we're tackling. And so I'm appreciative for that. You know, those exist whether or not we officially have distance learning or whether we close schools, right? We see that in summer learning gaps that, you know, their parents and families that have resources to support their kids are going to do that whether our doors are officially closed or not. And families that struggle with that are going to struggle with that whether or not we officially close our doors or not. And so I'm appreciative that we are thinking about that, that we're keeping that at the forefront of our mind, both as our leaders, our teachers, our staff. Are doing that. Thank you for the update. One of the things I was going to ask about or kind of ensure that we were keeping on our radar was just around Chromebooks and providing that access. You know, I'll just say I know that there are other districts in our community that have done that successfully. And so if there are still questions around that, to Trustee Corzo's point, we were on a call with other school board members in our county earlier today. Who were talking through kind of some of that. And I know Pacifica is one that has done that, and our high school district. And so, you know, great places to reach out to in terms of what that's looked like and challenges that they face so that we can hopefully work around them. So, and it's really exciting to hear about the overwhelming survey response. Of course, there's folks that we still need to reach out to. And so thank you for thinking creatively about how to do that. And 8,000 is a pretty great number when you think about the fact that, you know, again, that's family. And so there are multiple families in our district that have more than one student. So that's a really incredible response. So that's really great. I thought it was really helpful to hear the breakdown of the phase 1 and phase 2 priorities. I would really love for that to be something that we communicate to our families as well. I think, you know, per some of the public comment, I don't necessarily think everyone's clear around what the expectations are. What are the expectations for now? What should my teacher be focusing on? What should I be focusing on? What should we as a family be focusing on now? And then what's going to be the expectation and how does that shift when we come back after spring break? So I think breaking that down for folks would be very, very helpful. And just being really transparent about that. I'm also interested to know, this kind of bridges into, I guess, some questions. I'm curious to know what are some of the touch points that we currently have and plan to have in terms of where it's working and where there might be gaps. You know, I know the response has been predominantly positive, but I have heard of some instances where folks are not receiving contact from teachers or they're not receiving response. And so how are we identifying where those are gaps? And then what is the process for parents if things are not going as expected? And I guess that brings me back to our first point around what is the expectation? So once people know that, then they know whether or not it's being met. And then what is their process for following up? So I guess that is a question, although I'm not quite done. So I don't know if you want me to pause and answer or just finish and then I guess that's probably a David question.
That we will, as we're working on the phase 2, we can sure get something written up and out and letting parents know how to reach out if they're not receiving communication. We can definitely get that going now.
And then are there ways that we have, thank you, are there touch points that we currently have, just kind of, I know that there's a lot of meetings with site leadership and et cetera. Are there places where we're able to kind of get those touch points now to kind of determine whether or not there are gaps that we can address in the, you know, now?
So we did talk about that today, actually, in our meeting with all site leadership. And they are gathering us some names of students that they've had trouble communicating with. And so we're working on figuring out how to improve the communications with those particular families. So we are beginning that process now.
And then I could add, Shara, that Joan has structured regular engagements with site leadership. So we have those as opportunities, frankly, daily for staff to raise up for us where they're encountering challenges. Ed Services team is holding some smaller focus groups with site and teacher leaders. And then we're setting the expectation, and actually I think it's really site principals are setting the expectation of holding very regular meetings with their staff as well, again, virtually, but nonetheless where they get a lot of feedback. So it feels like there's this chain of check-in and feedback about where we're hitting challenges and encountering gaps.
That's helpful, thank you. And I think I wonder about, I don't know if you guys are getting like the same sorts of questions, but like something around what would be the process for communication or contact if things aren't going as expected, or if I have X question, for I think about our parents with students with special needs. I wonder about maybe pulling together some sort of frequently asked questions document where then we just have it that we continue to add to it as we get questions that multiple folks are asking, because this is all new, and I think that might help just to streamline the communication even that you guys are getting, right? So you don't have to keep answering questions that we can kind of centralize. So that might be one way to approach some of that. And then another just suggestion is in phase 2, one thing that, again, per one of these calls that we were on that I heard as a suggestion or a learning, I guess, that one district had was having some parent kind of support or preparation. So there's been FaceTime with students, but then the parents are sometimes not knowing how to utilize the resources to then support their kids. And so might there be like some Zoom meetings or, Meet meetings or something that's hosted maybe by each of the sites or something like that, that provide a little bit of parent education around how to navigate the tools so that they feel better equipped to support their kids. Wondering if that could be something that we could include in phase 2, as well as just kind of like, I think, again, having that expectation would be helpful, but just sort of even some tips and tricks around what are the best ways that you can support your kid during this time. Because I think a lot of times people don't like, should I be providing a full day of instruction for my kid? And do I need to, learn how to be a teacher overnight or which obviously is, not, they're not the experts. And so what are the tips and tricks that we can give parents so they feel confident that they're providing the kinds of supports that their kids need, but not completely overwhelmed? So wondering if those might be some things that we can include in phase 2. I will also just say, I don't know if I explicitly said this in my thank you at the beginning, but I will just say thank you, Diane, for all of the communication. I think it's been incredible, and it's been timely, and it's been frequent, and it's been kind of in all the right places. And I just had a lot of folks reach out and say that they were so appreciative for how we've been communicating. So thank you for your leadership on that. It's really, really important during a time like this. And so really grateful for that. And I'll pause for now, or stop for now. Thank you.
Okay, I believe the next trustee, Proctor.
Hi. I just wanted to really thank everyone for the huge effort from the entire school district for making the best of the situation. It's been so evident that everyone's really stepped up, and the communication has been super helpful and comforting, and I'm just really proud of being part of the school district. So I wanted to thank everyone for all of their hard work. But I also wanted to just acknowledge that it's a hard situation. I know that it's hard for the school district, for the teachers and principals and all the staff that are working really hard on this, but just wanted to give you from my perspective as a parent, it's also hard on us parents. And so that's why one of the questions, or the only question I asked really, was what are the expectations? Because I'm fortunate to be working from home right now, and I have devices for my kids, but I'm expected to work. And so, I kind of struggle with this, should I am I doing enough, and do the kids, are they falling behind, and how do I really support them? And I know that there's other parents out there that have to work as well, and so I would just ask that the phase 2 expectations be very clear, because I don't want to feel like I'm letting my kids fall behind, and I'm sure there's lots of parents with other situations that feel the same pressure. But I think, I'm really in support of this. I really like where we're going. I feel, again, proud to be part of a school district that seems, really ahead of I guess you can't really be ahead of it because we didn't really know what to expect, but on a better path than some of the other districts where they're still struggling to figure out how to make this work. And I know we have issues about equity and making sure everyone has access, and I know that you guys are putting a lot of thought into that. And so I applaud everyone, and I, again, really thank you for making the best of this.
Trustee Hitchcock.
Hello. First, I want to say that in regards to phase 2, all of you asked the questions that I had written down. And, like in regards to putting together the clear and consistent guidelines and expectations, not just for staff, but for families as well. And again, kind of touching back on families and exactly pretty much what Shara said, are parents and families aware of a daily schedule, and do they also have guidelines of what and how they can help their student? So thank you all on that. And then to all the families and everybody, our world changed dramatically, basically overnight, with little to no time to prepare. And I know the distance learning has not been perfect. There have been hiccups, and there'll probably continue to be some hiccups because we've never faced this before. And as we are all adjusting to this new system and going into phase 2, I just ask everyone to please continue to be patient and kind and supportive to all of our staff as they navigate through this. And again, to echo some public comments and board comments, I commend every single teacher, staff, certificated, classified, executive cabinet. Special shout out to Diane, Joan. I know you all have been working countless unexpected extra hours. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've put differences aside to come together and work as one. Just determined to make this transition of distance learning into a working system. The abundance of support from our volunteers and community members working together is no doubt beautiful. And just words can't express how proud I am also to be a part of this district and community. Y'all are rock stars. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your hard work and dedication. Thanks.
Trustee Chen.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Yeah, great. So I wanted to go back and just sort of think about where we've come from. I mean, 2 weeks ago today, basically, we did a vote to switch to distance learning starting, with the following week. And the days prior to that vote, I know that we probably were all getting pressure from our friends and other parents of schools and the overall community about, like, how come you're not closing schools? And the issue was, you can't just flip a switch and, close schools all at once and everything works out perfectly, right? I think people need to realize that what we were doing beforehand, we knew we were going to have to switch to this. And so a lot of prep work did happen before. And I think what we're seeing because of that, and the fact that we had a professional development day that Friday, and then the subsequent days, and our agreements with the MOU, with the unions, is that I feel like we're in a much better place than we are in other districts. Specifically, like the public commenter talked about in Sacramento, Sacramento School District, I just feel like we are in a much better place. And a lot of that goes towards basically the 24-hour work that Joan, you, and the executive cabinet, and everybody's been doing. The teachers, the classified staff, everybody had to just pick up the ball and just immediately sort of flip a switch and be like, okay, we're doing this. This is what we have to do. And, I just want to thank everybody for that. I had said that, last 2 weeks ago, that it's like a Herculean effort, and I think it really is. And I feel like we've gone now past the first couple of weeks of sort of that shock and awe phase in somewhat, where we are, all running around with our heads cut off, to now we're really focusing on, what's the next steps? How can we improve? It's not perfect. Everything's definitely not perfect, but we're in a much better place than we were a couple weeks ago. So again, I just want to thank everybody for all their work. I wanted to give my sort of personal distance learning point of view. I have 2 children, a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. And I'll just say, that first day for my 2nd grader, we picked up, a package of work that, we were going to work on for the next couple weeks. And as a 2nd grader, they weren't, I believe most 2nd graders aren't used to technology in some ways. So we were used to the sort of hard copy hand materials, and we were going through them, and we were fine. What we've done now is that our teacher has been able to check in at least twice a week as well using Google Hangouts. And both my son's teacher and my daughter's teacher are very veteran teachers, 30 plus years of experience. All of a sudden they've had to learn Google Hangouts and Zoom and all these different things. And I tell you, it's just amazing. They're doing awesome. There were hiccups the first day or so, but it's amazing. My son in 4th grade is now evolved to being online a lot. They have a morning meeting at 8:30 that runs 8:30 to 9:30. Then he breaks into small groups from 9:30 to 10 or 10:30. And then he does his work. And I will say that it's amazing. It's amazing what our teachers have been able to do. And I'm just really proud that we've all been able to come to that point. Now, I fully admit that my family, we have the technology, we have the Wi-Fi, and I know that there are a lot of families that don't have the access that we have. And so I do think about them as well. So I know that in the Google Hangouts, there's definitely more than 2/3, if not 3/4 of the class in each of the Hangouts in both of my respective kids' classes. So I think that's great. And I do know that the teachers are trying to reach out to those who are not on. So from my perspective, I just want to echo some of the public comments that we've heard. And it's not perfect, but we are doing the best that we can at the moment. And I really want to thank again the teachers and staff and everyone who's been helping out. Again, there's that digital divide. I am concerned about that. I am concerned the survey of the 8,000 respondents. I'd love to see that data at some point. When we have our daily, that now has gone to every other day, calls with the rest of the San Mateo County elected officials. I did raise the issue of the digital divide and how can the county or other cities help us, because we do have a community of concern, the North Central, that does have, where we have need there. And I know that at some point, the new phase back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, was that all cities were trying to get to free public Wi-Fi. And so I was trying to see whether or not we can do that. I know Comcast has reached out and given hotspots, but I really hope that we can try and close that gap, especially as we move into phase 2. I'd love to know what the next steps are in terms of the updates. Like, this is a fantastic update. I know that this is our special meeting before our regular meeting, and we're gonna have right afterwards. But I'd love to know, like, how are things really going? I'd love to hear some other stories, because while I believe that, my kids and my kids' teachers are doing well, and I've heard some other ones are doing fine, I'd love to know where sort of the ins and outs are and how do we improve and what are the next steps for that. Whether it's another update that we need to have over spring break or what, I just would like to know how we move forward. Another comment in terms of the presentation, I love the SEL check-ins, the social and emotional check-ins. I definitely feel that for the teachers who are checking in individually with each of the kids, because I hear them on the Google Hangouts or on the Zooms, on the Zoom calls. I love that because I do think it is a stressful situation for not just the teachers or the parents, but also the kids as well. You know, sometimes they need that social connections with some of their friends and their teachers. So I love that. In terms of the outreach, I know that as we move forward and as we try and spread the word, I love the fact that we are going to the places where we are providing food to our 4 locations. If we wanted to take it a next step further, and if we're not trying to if we haven't reached everybody, which, you know, I don't know if we actually can, you know, one thought would be is whether or not we try and flyer our community's multicultural grocery stores. You know, we have a number of grocery stores that serve different ethnic communities, and one way might be to reach out and provide flyers, hard copies for those families there who are going to get their food anyways. The other thing that I want to think about is, as the stock market has sort of fallen and had this roller coaster ride, I fully expect our CalPERS and STRS pension contributions to most likely go up. So I hope that we're at least thinking about that, because that will maybe not hit us now, but it will hit us soon, if not at the end of this year, next year, because with the economy and the loss of, I would say, maybe paper profits from our pension holders, I do worry about that, and I'm starting to worry about our financial solvency. Lastly, the last thing I want to say is, you know, we have been, as elected officials, been on these calls with the rest of the elected officials, but I'm kind of wondering, you know, we've gone past, again, that shock and awe phase. We all have our networks, but I want to know what else can we do to help. You know, we sort of sit back and you know, listen here and provide comments in some ways at the 10,000 foot level. But I know if there are ways, Joan, that, you know, you need help, what do we need to do? Is there something, you know, just let us know, because I think that it does take a village, and, you know, it shows that we are really all coming together here. But I also feel like, you know, in some ways, you know, there are people who have reached out and said, okay, what can we do? You know, I know that SMC Strong, that the nonprofit, has gone up for people to do donations. I think our Ed Foundation is doing something, but what, you know, providing those resources and then reaching out to say, like, okay, you know, we could really use help for this or that. And we may be able to help, maybe not, but I mean, you know, I think we'd all like to try and help if we can. So with that, I'll just end my comments. I think, you know, you guys are doing an amazing job. It's amazing how far we've come. And, you know, definitely during spring break, if we need to, you know, take the mental health days, but then we got to come back and do phase 2. And hopefully not longer. I'm just proud, again, as the other trustees have mentioned, you know, proud to be part of this district as well. So, but thank you.
President Corzo.
Thank you. So, let's see. I wanted to just share that I think it's really important, or I guess this is a sort of a question, but also just suggestion in terms of you know, how we're doing everything that we can to reach the families that teachers haven't heard back from. I just want to share that, for example, you know, a parent can change a phone number, and you know, they didn't put it in our system yet, but they did give it to the teacher individually. Does the teacher have access to update that in the larger system? I also thought about, you know, room parents sometimes run into this and they can't reach everyone, but then they, you know, they somehow get the contact info and they have it. Are we, you know, are we exploring all of those options? I want to make sure that we are really conscientious of next steps that are taken in terms of checking on these families and reaching out to them. I want to make sure that our district and our staff do everything that they can, explore every avenue they can before elevating it to another level. And I did also just want to share that we also now have Class Dojo, and to be honest, I can't remember if we're all using it, but I know my school is using it, and I want to say how great I think it's been. Something that my son's teacher has done is, ask kids to share a video individually to her, so it's confidential, and just share, what is your favorite thing about staying at home, and what do you miss about school, right? So giving kids that space to not just, it's not just the packet, it's also support, like the social emotional support. And so I just wanted to share what a positive experience I think that has been for my son, and how helpful it's been. I know our school, Fiesta, they're also having teachers, read a story each night. And I want to say they even posted like more than that. So teachers, the principal reading a book to the kids, and still feeling connected to school, to staff in that way, has been really positive. And I think that's, I just encourage more of that in terms of also the social emotional piece. And in terms of the resource list that we are working on, I know that the county has also posted a list up there. Something that I have experienced just in my role, in my role as a social worker is, sorry, my screen went weird for a second, is, having a list of resources, but then not being clear on the process for how families actually use that. And so I think, collaboration with our county and getting clarification on that would be great. I also want to say that this is something that I have specifically raised in that forum, and the calls that we're having with our county staff and our all our elected officials is, we have a responsibility as a community to support our nonprofits as they are basically forced to serve so many more people during this crisis. And I do want to say that something that feels very real for me is the reality that this county needs more resources for its most vulnerable populations. We have small but mighty nonprofits, but we do have to support them more, especially now, as and I think that having those strong resources would also help our school district in the long run, right? So that's just kind of a shout out to everyone, because we are all a community. And then I did also just want to say that for our kids that, that have older siblings in our schools, or maybe older siblings in high schools, I'm just going to speak from like my experience here. I have a younger sister. My mom and my stepdad didn't really finish school, weren't able to help her very much with homework, and so that was something that I took on, and I just want to speak to that, because I think that is something that our students may be experiencing. And I think those kids that not only have to do their own homework, but also have to help their siblings with homework, that is something that maybe we should ask about and try to, at least recognize that these kiddos are going to be doing, and the weight of that on them. And I also, to Ken's point, as board members, we are here also to help. And so something that I am really wanting to help with is, you know, does the district staff need us to help with like reaching out to Comcast and figuring out, you know, if they can, I know, like, for example, I know that my understanding is they've opened up their like community networks. So, you know, if you go sometimes to a coffee shop, it'll say like Xfinity Wi-Fi, and if you're a customer, you put in your login info and you can get access that way. But my understanding is that they've opened it up now to everyone. So I'm wondering, is that something that is already available to families, but they just don't know about it? And then just in terms of the San Mateo Strong Fund, just so folks know exactly what that is, it's a fund that the county has created and put $3 million into, and my understanding is that the Peninsula Health Care District matched that and put another $3 million. There might be more. That's the last thing that I heard. But that is a fund that is meant to support a lot of different groups of folks. And the application process hasn't been defined. It hasn't been defined whether, you know, there's what groups are going to get priority, et cetera. And that is something that I'm actually personally committed to looking more into and hopefully collaborating on, because I do think that there are some safety nets for some people. For example, you know, folks that are born in the United States and have lost their work, they can apply for unemployment. But folks that are, let's say, undocumented, let's say work for cash only, they won't necessarily have access to things like that. And so that is a reality. Another thing that I've just kind of seen in the community, and I want to just say and encourage everyone to do is, you know, if you have a gardener or someone that cleans your house that you pay in cash, and they're not actually doing that service right now, but if you have the ability and you could still pay them, and then either, you know, pay them now, so in the future maybe like work that out, you know, but like people need, they need to feed their families. So everyone has, you know, some ability to help our community in that way. And so I just wanted to share that because I think that is something that is worth considering. And of course, every family and every person has to look at their own personal finances, but you know, we as a community have to make it through this together. And you know, and we're all here to support each other. But you know, if you can help others, please do dig deep. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap up my comments there. But thank you so much to the staff and exec cabinet and everyone that's an essential worker who is, you know, doing their part in making our society continue through this. Thank you. Oh, okay, now I have to, sorry, let me pull up the agenda again. Where is my agenda? Do folks hear me? I'm sorry, my screen froze on my computer and I don't actually know.
Just the adjournment.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Sorry, 1 second. 1 second before we adjourn. After we adjourn, can we take a 5 to 10 minute break? Because I know I need to go to the bathroom and I'm sure other folks do too. So yeah, let's motion to adjourn and then take.
Actually, President Cordo, it would be appreciated so I can stop this recording as the special work session, special meeting, and then start a new recording of our board meeting right after the fact. So it would be appreciated for a few minutes for the technical aspects of this as well.
Perfect. So again, sorry, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, and then we have to do a roll call. So I support the adjournment. Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Hitchcock.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
What time are we coming back?
Let's say 10 minutes.
8:50.